At NTT, we push the boundaries of what is possible. We're trusted globally to connect data, things and people in ways that transform and improve business, society and the planet. Every day we work together to create new connections, new insight and new value, delivering IT services and solutions across a breadth of world-class technologies. In collaboration with leading partners, helping our clients across healthcare, education, smart cities, manufacturing, retail and more, to accelerate positive change. We're renowned for some major inventions, like emojis used by billions globally to express themselves without using words, and launching the first enterprise multi-country private 5G solution. We're one of the world's leading network providers, and we're the technology partner that powers the Tour de France, revolutionizing the viewing experience for the world's most watched sporting event. It's our belief in possibility that drives us, but it's our people that make it happen. At NTT, what you do matters.
Welcome and good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Thanks for tuning in for this LinkedIn Live event hosted by NTT Data in partnership with Microsoft. I'm Hugues Treguier, Vice President of Product Marketing and Go-to-Market for Digital Collaboration Services at NTT Data. And today, our topic will be how generative AI is transforming productivity in the modern workplace. Before we get started, a few housekeeping items. This is a LinkedIn Live event, so you can ask questions in the chat window, and we'll make sure to capture them to keep them for the Q&A session that will be right at the end for about 10 minutes. Don't hesitate to ask any questions that comes to mind for our panelists. Speaking of which, I would like to introduce our two panelists joining us today, Charlie Doubek from NTT Data and Uriel Rootshtain from Microsoft. Charlie, welcome, and please introduce yourself.
Thank you, Hugues. So my name is Charlie Doubek again. I look after our go-to-market for our digital collaboration services, working together with Microsoft to help our customers achieve great results and new outcomes.
Thanks, Charlie. Uriel, we're very pleased to have you. Please introduce yourself as well.
Hi, very pleased to be here with everybody. My name's Uriel and I lead partner marketing for modern work and business applications at Microsoft.
Fantastic, thanks. So getting into our topic, generative AI and how it's transforming productivity in the modern workplace. Well, it's a hot topic today with the arrival of ChatGPT and other large language models. A lot of our clients are looking to better understand how Gen AI can help their workforce be more efficient to drive their business outcomes. In 2023, NTT Data conducted a research on employee experience trends across all continents. We had about 1,440 respondents that provided insights into how they see employee experience, or EX for short, positively impacting their business. The first insight is that EX has emerged as one of the top C-suite priorities, with 94% of CEOs responding that they agree that improvements in EX will directly affect their bottom line. The second insight was that the EX narrative has now changed. Whereas it was previously centered around employee well-being and employee advocacy, it's now more about the tools and technologies that enable and empower users to drive efficiency, with a focus on collaboration, communications, and mobility, regardless of their location and whether they're working from the office or remotely. As a matter of fact, hybrid work, which was planned to be reduced to a minority, about 43% in our previous 2021 research, still represents a majority in the 2023 survey results, about 57% actually, with no sign that this trend will change. Lastly, and closer to today's topic, AI has been tagged by our respondents as a critical enabler for digital EX and the #1 investment priority within the next 1 to 3 years. So the first question I want to ask our panelists today, I would like to ask you, Uriel. Microsoft is a leader in the generative AI space with the announcement of Copilot mid last year. Where do you see the market heading with regards to AI? Will generative AI transform work and how? And also, now that we're a few months past the Copilot general availability, can you tell us more about the Microsoft 365 Copilot landscape and how it applies to modern work?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great place to get started. It's incredible how quickly things are moving in the space. It's hard to believe that it's just over a year ago that OpenAI released ChatGPT 3.5, and these large language models went from being something that's interesting to something that shocked, I think, many of us in terms of how incredibly useful it was and how productive you could be actually taking advantage of some of its capabilities. If I could just take a minute to kind of sketch a broad landscape, when I think about the types of large language model tools, generative AI tools that we have at our disposal, I think about a spectrum where on the one hand, you've got the ability to build custom AI bots or custom AI GPTs that are built on platforms like Azure OpenAI. And on the other end of the spectrum, I think about packaged products, things like Copilot for Microsoft 365, Copilot for Sales, Copilot for Service, where out of the box, you're already getting a Copilot agent that has the ability to leverage the information available to you and provide you with useful insights, guidance, and do work on your behalf within the context of a certain application. And somewhere in the middle of that spectrum, you have the ability to take those productized Copilots and you have the ability to extend them with plugins or to customize them. And so if I move to the second part of your question and I think about Copilot for Microsoft 365, as you said, we've now been in market for a few months. We went to general availability in November. We've already had a large number of customers that participated in our early adopter program. And it's incredible to see the interest and the response that we've seen from customers that have started to pick up the technology and start to put it to good use in their environment. The Copilot for Microsoft 365 application is essentially that generative AI component that shows up inside of Teams. It shows up inside of your Office applications like Word, PowerPoint, Excel, Outlook. And so that's really your Copilot for productivity that is helping you to get your everyday productivity work done better, smarter. It's helping you to save time. It's helping you to do things more efficiently. And it's really that agent that's helping you in order to make sure that you can stay on top of your tasks and take many of the mundane tasks out of your way so that you can focus on what matters most.
Thanks, Uriel. Great insight. So actually, next question goes to Charlie, and it's a follow-up to what you said. There are a lot of clients that want to understand how they can get prepared for generative AI in the Microsoft context. So identity data, how are we preparing companies for generative AI? How do we help them extract the best value from it?
Yeah, I think one of the things that we've had a great privilege to kind of be in a good position with Microsoft, because we were a launch partner for Copilot 365 or M365 Copilot. We were able to test a lot of different use cases with our architecture and with our professional service teams. And what this gave us to apply to our clients is thinking about different scenarios of how to pull in different communication methods into the AI assistant. So a good example of this is when you're working with a company that's looking to roll out Copilot or M365 Copilot or the different versions of Copilot. One of the things you might want to focus on is the top to bottom approach on how I can make the executives more efficient in that use case. So for example, executives are always taking calls and meeting important clients all the time. And the way to make them more productive is to make their conversations more meaningful and also the output of those conversations more executable. So one of the scenarios you can imagine is I'm an executive and during the day I know I'm going to have a contact with a key client. Before that client calls me or I call that client, I can go into Copilot for Exchange. I can get a summary of every email that client has sent to me, and I can get context before that client calls me, so I know what the objective should be of that call and also some pain points that particular customer has. When the customer does reach out to me, they can call me. I could be on my mobile, I could be on Teams, I could be on my landline, I could be moving. And when that phone conversation happens, I can then ask my client, can Copilot join this conversation? I can click a button, then Copilot can listen to that conversation, take the notes and the action items. So when I exit that call, I can output that data into my staff and make sure they're executing the deliverables that I've committed to this client. So you've changed the way I work with my clients, but you've made me more effective during the day. So then you work your way down with our clients is how can you look at different use cases? You could look at hidden contact centers where clients are calling in. You can look at websites, mobile applications, different ways that communication's happening, and you can introduce those to something like Copilot. Uriel mentioned the nature of M365 Copilot, where it's a ring-fence solution. So you're working within the security guidelines of your current Azure environment, your current M365 account, so you can quickly deploy this tool. But not only that, with NTT's network, we're plugged into the back of Azure through our Operator Connect instance and also other connectivity points through Azure Communication Services. So I can bring in those external conversations into that productivity gain. So what we usually do with clients is we start to map out these use cases and we actually move them into a proof of concept where they can test these use cases and then gather real data for their business case and then expand that deployment to different personas and different use cases throughout their organization.
Well, actually, you mentioned security. That's consistently a question we're being asked about when it comes to generative AI. So maybe for Uriel, what are the key security considerations when it comes to deploying generative AI in a corporate environment? Like, how do you protect company data, and how do you protect yourself as a user from data oversharing within the organization?
Yeah, that's right. This is a question that comes up in almost every customer engagement. I would say that there's two main types of questions that we get, or considerations that we get. The first one is customers wanting to know or make sure that they are not going to have their private information, corporate information, exposed to other people via the large language model, sucked up into the large language model and exposed. And the second one is making sure that information that is supposed to be limited and restricted within the company to a certain set of users is not exposed beyond that set of users and overshared. So let me deal with them in turn. On the first one, this is really just a matter of education. People have the perception that you have to train a large language model on the company's data in order for it to be able to give you answers that are relevant to your business. That is incorrect. The analogy that I use is I can learn the skill of driving on public roads. I don't have to learn how to drive in your city or in your neighborhood in order to be able to drive in your neighborhood. All I need is a map in order to be able to use my skill of driving to be able to navigate your city or navigate your neighborhood. So when we build Copilot for Microsoft 365 on top of the ChatGPT model, ChatGPT is trained on information on the World Wide Web. It is not sucking up information from your tenant or from your environment and exposing that to the rest of the world. Also, very importantly, is the additional privacy that you get from using a commercial grade product like Copilot for Microsoft 365, where the search queries are not being sucked up and exposed externally. So you don't have to worry about search queries or corporate information being exposed outside of your tenant boundaries, outside of your corporate boundaries, because we honor the data protection rules that exist for Microsoft 365 in general. So information is secure from that point of view. Secondly, the question when it comes to thinking about how do you protect from oversharing? Well, this is really building on any of the security foundations and data protection foundations that should exist anyway. There isn't anything different that you should be doing versus best practice, but it's fair to say that Copilot is very effective at finding information within the business. So if your strategy before was security through obscurity, then that may then introduce additional risk in terms of making sure that you go and implement those best practices to avoid oversharing scenarios. And over here, we've got some great guidance and are always coming out with more around the few simple things that you can and should do in order to inspect your SharePoint shares where a lot of the data lives, make sure that they are not overshared, address the security permissions so that people have the right permissions, and then utilize the built-in capabilities in Microsoft 365 to make sure that the right type of content labels are being applied so that Copilot can honor those content labels, can honor those permissions, and you will then avoid those types of oversharing situations. So as I said, we've got some great guidance in order to help you get started very quickly. You don't have to undertake a massive security project before you can start to get value out of Copilot. You can start with a few basic activities, get going quickly, and then continue to optimize as you go.
Makes sense. Thanks. Actually, another question for you, Uriel, more specific to Teams. So Teams is the leading enterprise communications platform now. How does Microsoft 365 Copilot impact and improve employee experience, collaboration in Teams, and how does it unlock capabilities?
Yeah, well, I mentioned that Copilot for Microsoft 365 gives you that Copilot capability inside of your Office applications, and Teams is actually where I believe you get the best experience, where it really shines the most. Having the ability to use Copilot in your meetings, in your phone calls, in your chat experience, where you have the ability to use Copilot for Microsoft 365 chat, where it aggregates information across all different boundaries. That's where I believe it actually shines the most. In fact, we conduct regular research, and just in November, we released our latest Work Trend Index report. And some of the stats that we got back from that were really compelling based on the early adopter customers that were the first to use the capabilities, also taking into account our own Microsoft internal users that have been using our own technology and what difference it's made to them in terms of how they work. And across that entire population, 70% were saying that they were significantly more productive. We did some controlled studies where we gave sets of users Copilot to use as a tool, and other sets of users did not have it, and we set them tasks to go and achieve, like searching across information and writing blogs and summarizing information from meetings. And we found that those that had Copilot as a tool were able to complete that 30% faster. We've seen that these users are able to catch up on meetings that they've missed 4 times faster. And almost 80% of them said that they would not want to give up Copilot, and they want to continue to use it as a tool, even if they had to choose between that and a free lunch on a regular basis at work. So, very compelling in terms of the way that it's showing up inside of all of the productivity surface area. But as I said, specifically in Teams, I think that's where it shines the most and where you get that incredible capability. Because as we know, since 2022, the number of Teams meetings that people are participating in has tripled. And so you've got a lot of surface area in terms of your interactions with other colleagues and with external entities, customers and partners. Having that additional Copilot capability within Teams and with your communication suite is where you really are able to synthesize a lot of information and very quickly catch up on things that you need to know and actions that you need to take.
Thanks, Uriel. As a matter of fact, I didn't participate in that survey, but I can attest the same thing. I've been using Copilot in Teams, in PowerPoint, and in Excel. In Teams specifically, summarizing meetings, summarizing actions, summarizing meetings I didn't attend, and especially also tracking what happened recently with a particular person, like Charlie, for example. What happened with Charlie in the last week, it's really useful to summarize things that you wouldn't be able to aggregate by yourself in a timely manner. So really, really good stuff as well. Now, in practical terms, Charlie, how is Entity Data looking to incorporate M365 Copilot for organizations? Like, how can they quickly get started to realize the potential that Copilot has to offer? That's really the question that we're getting asked the most.
Yeah, most definitely, Hugues. And I think if you look at what Microsoft is doing when they're having these conversations with organizations about AI transformation, what's happening is that message down through IT is that we need to modernize our infrastructure and connect our infrastructure and make sure that we're compliant so we can quickly implement this. Because if I'm working for a company that has generative AI, I'm going to stay with that company, or I'm going to want to work for a company that has generative AI in their productivity suite. So really what we do to help companies really achieve that is we first, being a close partner of Microsoft, can check for eligibility for workshops and POCs, so we can quickly, without any risk for the customer, put a customer on a POC or a workshop and really show them how to connect all the different communication methods and also look at the security side of Copilot. So we do a 3-week advisory with our entity data teams to go over all different elements of the different Copilot families. And then from an infrastructure perspective, what my team will do is take a look at all the different methods of communication and how we can connect those scenarios to Copilot. So for example, we mentioned Teams. You have Teams calling, you have rooms, you have meetings, but you also have agents sitting on Teams that might be connected to a website or a mobile app, and there may be a chat bot in front of that. So you can take things like Copilot Studio and develop an integration with that, part of the intelligent prompt, and then basically route those human to human, human to machine, machine to human calls directly to agents or to different modalities within your organization. And we can do all that, but first, I think our customers need to know what is the art of the possible. How can you connect those communication methods? Because not only can you make productivity gains, but you can also depreciate old infrastructure at the same time. So I think what's really popular right now is people looking at some of the early case studies where AI was really prevalent was in the CX organizations, where you do have these different use cases where you're talking from machine to human, human to human, machine to human, so on and so forth. So those are all different ways we can route calls and make sure that Copilot is actually adding value to the customer, but also adding to value to the employee experience. Because when I'm on calls and I can set it up in that CX experience, I can then aggregate my call data and make sure that that's put into my CRM. And again, we're working very closely with the roadmap that Microsoft had, so we can talk to you about what these things can do for you today, but also what they could do for you tomorrow if you start down that path. And I think that's quite important for our client engagements today.
Excellent, thanks, and thank you both for these insights. I think we're starting to get a lot of questions in the chat, so we're going to go to the Q&A now. Let's have a look at those questions. As we have a few on the roadmap and the questions on what Microsoft is preparing. We have some on CRM and contact center agents, and I'll start with the first one, which is, what is the role of the partner when a company is looking to implement AI? That's more of a follow-up of what you just said, Charlie. So I'll hand this over to you.
Yeah, I would say that, you know, we work very closely with Microsoft and their engineers, and are on several committees and partner advisory councils, and we're very good at looking at the roadmap, but also sometimes gap filling key skill sets that you may not have, because basically, you know, moving to the cloud and moving into these packaged generative AI systems, you may not need to know all the details of the inner workings of those systems to deploy them. And you could have someone like us parachute in, get you started and get you moving. But also, I think that many customers simply just don't have time with all the different things they're looking at around generative AI. They have different types of gains in coding and gains in security and gains in productivity. So we can really specialize, especially as, you know, one of Microsoft's top integration partners when it comes to real-time communications, to really accelerate our customers, not only from a vertical perspective, because we work with different verticals all over the world, but also from a knowledge gap and skill gap perspective, which is what we're being asked to do time and time and again ever since Copilot was announced.
Thanks. And the roadmap question I'll ask you, Uriel, which is closer to what Microsoft is implementing in the future for Copilot. So what is the role of Microsoft 365 Copilot in expanding the M365 ecosystem in productivity and in teams in the future? What can you tell us in the near future?
Yeah, well, the pace of innovation in this space is just incredible. And you can see how quickly we've been moving with getting products to market. And so when you think about Copilot for Microsoft 365, that's really your general purpose productivity assistant that's helping you in all of your different productivity spaces. What you're also seeing is that we're coming to market with Copilots that are focused on specific functions and roles. And so we've already announced Copilot for sales, Copilot for service, and more is coming in order for you to have Copilots that have been tuned and that have been customized and specifically designed in order to help people that are in those roles in order to be even more productive in the jobs that they perform, and to integrate into the typical systems of record, line of business systems that they would be using on an ongoing basis. So Copilot for sales, Copilot for service, they actually are built on top of Copilot for Microsoft 365, and then add that additional layer. So you can expect to see more of these functional Copilots that come into play in order to really enhance the productivity and the experience of those types of individuals in a company. The second thing that I would say to you that is a massive opportunity is the extensibility element. So the ability to build plugins onto these Copilots and the ability to customize Copilots, because that's really where I believe we're going to take a significant step change. Today, if you take the out-of-box experience, then very quickly you can start to take activities or tasks that you are already doing and do them much faster or do them more efficiently. And so there's a good time saving over there. When you start to take advantage of the extensibility components, then you're moving into that next space of really transforming business processes altogether. And that's where you can actually get that quantum leap in terms of value back to the organization, and really modify the way that you go about driving execution of processes that maybe contribute much more to your top line, or maybe saving you a whole bunch of dollars on your bottom line.
Thanks, Uriel. Charlie, earlier you mentioned customer experience solutions and how Copilot can be killer app in those specific use cases. Customer experience or CX solutions or hidden contact center agents. That's a use case that we've discovered from the get-go, really, that clients were discussing about, and how generative AI can enhance. There's a question here that says how AI will treat voice response by live agent on soft phone, or keep it limited to chat responses. How will it make customers wait less? What will change, and how average handle time will decrease at the desk? I think that's a very typical use case that we're seeing for these kind of technologies.
Yeah, absolutely. So that can take many forms, and like you said, that we have we have quite a lot of experience in CX, and what's really happened the last year, and you can see it from our report that we did, is that EX and CX are coming together. So you need not only a good client experience to kind of close that gap, but also you need the employees to be on the right tools to be able to flag their availability and have calls route to the right places and everything like that. So, like Uriel said, there's kind of different versions of Copilot. So you could, if you're looking for a Copilot in a box to lower your handling times and get that into your key customer interactions, you can do that with very little to no infrastructure by taking something like Copilot Studio, and then we can use Azure Communications Services to connect all the flows for you without any hardware that you would need to put on premise. But also, when you look at customizing that experience, that's something that we have some great case studies around, where we've taken the cognitive services route and the OpenAI route and actually built an experience that is for your business, where you're looking at those common ask themes and things that are coming in from your customers and handling them more quickly, and then getting the calls to a person, because it's still very important for any chatbot experience to have a route to a person, to have a way you can talk to a human being in that case, and that makes you feel like that company does truly care about that interaction. So putting the right intelligence behind the large language model you have before you look into the CPaaS area, where you're connecting calls into agents. And most of our customers, they live in teams, and so the agents want to live in teams too. Based on their availability, you can set the hunt groups and call queues to hit the right agent. So these are things we've been mapping out for customers throughout our experience here at NTT Data. And considering we've moved over 1 million users to Teams calling, we've come across all these different use cases that were on premise that we're able to simulate in the cloud, now that Microsoft has a very robust roadmap in this space.
All right, thanks. There's one that looks a little bit tricky because it's pretty broad. It's on CRM. Can generative AI safely replace CRM? So maybe I'll start with you, Uriel, if you're happy to take the first step of the question, and then Charlie, maybe you can complement this a little bit.
Yeah, and I think we're going to build on some of the things that Charlie has already said here. I would say I wouldn't think of generative AI as replacing your system of record. Think of generative AI and things like Copilot for Sales as providing you with a much more efficient way of aggregating information from your sales, your CRM system, as well as other systems, and also providing a much more efficient way of being able to get information back into your system of record. One of the biggest issues that we face with CRM and sellers is just making sure that your CRM system is up to date and reflective. And then another challenge is making sure that you're leveraging that information in order to be able to utilize it in your interactions with customers. And so if you look at the work that we did with our own sellers, we were able to see by using our own Copilot technology that 70% of our sellers are telling us that they can keep their CRM systems up to date with less effort as a result of it, and that they're able to personalize and make their communications with their customers much more relevant and much more customized as a result of use of the Copilot capabilities. And then, of course, there's also the factors that Charlie mentioned, which is the omni-channel element, where you're going to start having these agents that are then interacting with customers directly and automating some of that, so that you need fewer humans to handle some of those queries before you can actually get a subject matter expert involved and escalate it up to them needing to be involved. So I think it enhances the environment, gives us a lot more capability, makes us a lot more effective, but it doesn't necessarily replace the system of record.
Makes sense. Charlie, you want to complement that quickly?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think integrations are key. And some of the items that you can see being applied here is, I myself started my career in a contact center, and one of the biggest laborious tasks is notation, right? And putting that into my CRM, and you're starting to automate some of those processes. You're not replacing the human, but you're making more time available for those high touch customers. You're making that stress levels go down. So I'll handle those customers better. So I'm going to be better at replying those inquiries because I have a lot less this kind of data entry type task, but also you're not missing any data. If you have an AI-based agent listening to calls, it's gathering data. So if you think, hey, what was that circuit ID? What was that billing number? You can gather that and mine that and put that into our CRM. So there's so much time's wasted in contact centers trying to find data as well. So really not this point replacing it, but integrated into things like Dynamics, for example, is critical.
Excellent. Well, we're around the top of the hour. There's one last question that I wanted to raise. It's actually funny because it asks, please provide me with expert insight on how generative AI is transforming productivity in the modern workplace. If Copilot for Teams could have listened to this call, I could have asked Copilot to summarize it and get the insight. But I guess we'll have to defer to our consultants in entity data, Charlie.
Yeah, absolutely. I was using Copilot the other day and asked them how to solve a problem we were talking about, and it gave a very good answer, to be honest. So I'd be interested to see what that answer would be.
All right. So I guess we're at the top of the hour. So thanks for joining us. Thanks to our speakers. If you want to register to what Charlie mentioned, the Entity Data Copilot Engagement Program, it will be in the chat window. You'll have the link there. You will be also able to download NTT's Employee Experience Trends Report for 2023, as well as Microsoft's Workplace Index from there. Hopefully this was informative. I would thank everyone for their participation and for all of the questions. Looking forward to another one. Thanks, everyone. Goodbye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
At NTT, we push the boundaries of what is possible. We're trusted globally to connect data, things, and people in ways that transform and improve business, society, and the planet. Every day we work together to create new connections, new insight, and new value, delivering IT services and solutions across a breadth of world-class technologies. In collaboration with leading partners, helping our clients across healthcare, education, smart cities, manufacturing, retail, and more, to accelerate positive change. We're renowned for some major inventions, like emojis used by billions globally to express themselves without using words, and launching the first enterprise multi-country private 5G solution. We're one of the world's leading network providers, and we're the technology partner that powers the Tour de France, revolutionizing the viewing experience for the world's most watched sporting event. It's our belief in possibility that drives us, but it's our people that make it happen. At NTT, what you do matters.